Most people don't realize these 5 health risks can show up suddenly after 70, and they could change everything. As you turn 70, things start to feel different. It's not anything dramatic, just a slight change, maybe an extra hour of rest needed in the morning, or perhaps an afternoon nap that stretches a little longer than usual. These are the little shifts that seem harmless. It's easy to dismiss them as natural signs of aging. After all, everyone talks about getting older, about slowing down. It's all just part of life, right? But here's the thing. Sometimes those subtle changes, the ones you brush off, can be a warning. A tiredness that lingers longer than it should, an ache that won't go away, a general feeling of sluggishness that becomes more familiar than it should. You may even start feeling out of breath doing things you've always done with ease. It's not alarming enough to call the doctor, not obvious enough to demand attention. But deep down, you start wondering if something is quietly shifting beneath the surface. The body doesn't always show you the full picture. The signs don't come in a loud, clear voice, telling you to pay attention. Instead, they creep in, unnoticed, until one day you realize that what seemed like normal aging was actually the first step towards something more serious. The risk is there, waiting, hiding behind those small, everyday changes. And that's the danger. When you're not paying attention, you miss the small things that could turn into something bigger. But how could you have known? Who warns you that these seemingly harmless moments, a little fatigue, a bit of discomfort, could be the first whispers of something more? It's easy to ignore them, but as you'll see, ignoring them can set you on a path you may not be able to turn back from. By the time you hit 70, you may feel like you've earned the right to slow down a bit. You've worked hard all your life, raised a family, built a legacy. But the cost of ignoring the signs that you're slowing down, of assuming it's just part of the process, is far higher than you think. It's more than just missing out on a few activities or struggling to do what you once did with ease. The stakes are much higher. Aging doesn't just affect your body. It touches everything. Your mind, your emotional well-being, your social life, and your sense of independence. What starts with a slight decrease in energy can lead to something far more disruptive. You might find yourself withdrawing from activities you once enjoyed, missing out on social gatherings, or feeling disconnected from those around you. The physical changes, while concerning, are only one part of the puzzle. It's the emotional and mental toll that can quietly erode your sense of self and your dignity. This is why it matters so much to understand what's happening in your body when you reach this stage of life. Ignoring those changes, thinking they're insignificant, can have consequences you never expected. A small issue today could snowball into something that impacts your independence, your ability to live alone, your sense of purpose. These aren't just health issues. They're the very things that protect your quality of life, your autonomy. The cost of ignoring these signs isn't just physical. It's about the intangible things that make life worth living. The freedom to do what you want, when you want, without relying on others. The joy of remaining independent, of keeping control. The problem is, those small signs, the ones you're dismissing, may already be affecting these deeper parts of your life, and you won't see it coming until it's too late. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that everything is normal. After all, you've lived through enough to know that the body changes as you age. A bit of tiredness? That's normal. A little more stiffness in the joints? Everyone gets that. But when you start thinking like that, you're setting yourself up to miss the red flags. One of the biggest mistakes many make after turning 70 is assuming that every little symptom, from a mild headache to occasional shortness of breath, is just part of getting older. But what if these aren't just signs of aging? What if they're your body telling you that something isn't quite right? The trouble is, most people brush them off, thinking it's just part of life. The most dangerous part is that these little things don't seem important. A slight limp, a quiet ache that doesn't seem to go away, or feeling winded after climbing a flight of stairs. These aren't the things you would call your doctor about. They don't scream health crisis. They just don't feel urgent. But by the time they become more noticeable, it's often too late to address them with the same ease. By ignoring these seemingly minor signs, you risk missing an opportunity to act early. You let things slide, assuming they'll get better on their own. But when health problems are allowed to fester, they grow into something far more serious. And in the process, they start to rob you of your independence, making you dependent on others in ways you never imagined. At first, you may still feel like you have control over your life. But slowly, subtly, things begin to change. You find yourself avoiding things that used to be routine, like going for a walk, or you begin to rely on others for tasks you once did without thinking. It starts with the small things, a bit of difficulty getting out of a chair, a little extra help needed to climb the stairs. Then one day, you realize that the little adjustments you've made are becoming permanent, and your world is shrinking in ways you didn't expect. The consequences of neglecting those early warning signs are starting to unfold. Your independence begins to erode. Maybe you're not able to drive as often, or you need help preparing meals. The things that once seemed trivial are now things you can no longer do on your own. And that sense of self-reliance, that quiet pride you took in being able to manage everything, starts to slip away. It's not just about physical limitations. It's about the mental and emotional toll this takes on you. Losing independence isn't just inconvenient, it's devastating. It's an erosion of identity. You begin to feel as though you're no longer in control, and that realization can be harder to deal with than any physical ailment. What's worse is that this loss is preventable. If only you'd caught the signs earlier. If only you'd acted when the first shifts happened, you might have been able to hold on to that independence a little longer. But now the consequences are real, and there's no going back. Here's the truth you may not have expected. Not everything about aging is inevitable. In fact, many of the challenges you face can be mitigated or even reversed by making small, thoughtful adjustments to your lifestyle. It's not about trying to turn back time, but about working with your body in a smarter way, embracing a healthier approach to aging. Take the story of a woman who at 72 thought her life was forever changed. She'd spent the past few years slowly losing her ability to move freely. She started using a walker, relying on family for more and more tasks. But then something shifted. She started making small changes in her routine, adding more movement to her day, adjusting her diet, and learning to listen to her body instead of pushing it beyond its limits. Slowly, her mobility returned, her energy levels increased, and she found herself doing things she thought were gone forever. This isn't a magic cure. It's not about erasing the signs of aging, but it is about taking control of what's in your power to change, no matter how small it seems. The key is understanding that aging doesn't have to be a downward slope. With the right tools, the right mindset, and the right actions, you can keep your health and independence intact much longer than you thought. So, where do you go from here? The good news is it's never too late to take action. Every step you take toward understanding your body's needs, every choice you make to prioritize your health, can lead you to a place of greater control and confidence. Start by paying closer attention to the small things, the subtle shifts that signal changes in your health. Act early, even if it seems minor. Take your time with the decisions that impact your well-being. Seek professional advice when necessary. But don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. You deserve to live with dignity, and that means taking responsibility for your health in a proactive, informed way. The power to age gracefully, to maintain your independence, and to keep your life as full and rich as you've always dreamed. It's in your hands. By making the right choices now, you can ensure that your later years are not just lived but truly lived well.